Welcome to Ladies Kicking Ass, a podcast for bold entrepreneurial women who are seeking community and authentic connections. My name is Tanya Wilson. I'm a wife, mama, entrepreneur, and growth coach who is crazy passionate about supporting you, babe. Yep, the ambitious woman who is ready to call her own shots and create a life and business that she truly adores. The best part about this podcast is our conversations are real, raw, and unfiltered. We chat about it all. Our wins, losses, business, family, friendships, and how to get the hell out of our own way and believe in ourselves and our big ideas. I'm your new hype girl, and I can't wait to see what you create when you start believing that you can be who and whatever you want. So come on, let's get inspired and learn something new today. Welcome to the Ladies Kickin' Ass podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Ladies Kickin' Ass. Today is like the big dream day for me because my guest today is the incredible Lindsey Schwartz. And Lindsey, I'm sure she knows this at some point because I've been following her for a long time, and I think a lot of my audience probably knows who she is as well. Lindsey is someone who has definitely been a mentor to me directly, thank goodness, in this last year, and even indirectly through the things she would post, her wonderful podcasts that we will definitely jump into and talk about. But this is one accomplished woman. Something that I love so much about Lindsey is she's a Midwest girl, and that still comes through at the root of who she is, and I identify with that so much. And I appreciate the authenticity that she brings to everything that she does. Lindsey is an accomplished author. I believe she's working on maybe another something for us to read, which is really cool. She is also the founder of Powerhouse Women, which is an online community that helps women build confidence, build businesses, build brands, and just genuinely go out and kick ass. So, Lindsey, thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning.
Well, I'm grateful to finally be invited onto Ladies Kickin' Ass because I've been such a big fan of you and everything you stand for from the moment that we first connected just via Instagram. And yes, It's just been a dream to get to be a bigger part of your journey this year.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Well, something that I want to, and I always ask everybody kind of at the beginning of this podcast, I'm learning it's kind of a probing question for some people. So I really want to know, besides the business, the accolades, all the things that you've accomplished, who is Lindsey at her core?
Ooh, well, you prefaced it by saying a Midwest girl at heart, and that is something that I very much identify with. I think a lot of who I am comes from where I come from. And what that means to me, in case anyone's like, well, what does that mean, being a Midwest girl? The Midwest was such a beautiful place to grow up. It's very community driven. I think it's a big reason why community has always been the way that I see the world. It's the way I see business. And that's just such a big piece of who I am. The values of really giving a shit about people. That's what makes me successful in business is I genuinely give a shit, and I think people can feel that. And it's just so much of who I've become as a person. And other than that, I think I'm really funny. I think that's the piece that I'm working to just even share more of. I have a very goofy side, especially like my husband and I, we're just weirdos when we're at home by ourselves. If there was like a nanny cam or something, it would probably make some pretty entertaining television. And I think that also plays into just what makes me successful in business is I don't take myself that seriously. I am the first person to be able to laugh at myself and have grace for myself in the same moment. And I just am passionate about my own human potential. I always say that right now I'm on that playing field in business. But the reason I love business is the same reason I loved health and fitness when I was in that industry. It's because it shows me new levels of myself. So at my core, that's really my biggest passion is finding my own potential as a human, helping other people along that journey, and laughing a lot along the way and not taking that journey too seriously.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. And I think just to talk about like that you actually give a shit about people, that is real deal. Because when you are with Lindsay, she will try to connect you. She will try to give back to you at any opportunity possible. The way that you remember people's names blows my mind. You just call people out of a crowd and you know everyone, which is something that is so incredible. And I think for people that come from small towns, and this is something I'm learning the more that I'm around Powerhouse Women events, there's a lot of people that are from small towns, the Midwest, that feel of stuff, because we crave that. We were shaped with that community. And when you don't have it, which we both live in Arizona, and it's a bit of a melting pot if you come from a small Midwest town of stuff, you're like, how come people don't wave at you? How come
Oh my
people aren't
gosh,
nice when you
yes.
say hi? It's almost like I would say hi to my neighbors and they like turn around and walk in their house. And I was like, oh my God,
It's
we had a
so
fire
weird.
across our street and the fire trucks are out there. Everybody's out there. And we're like, nobody knew who lived in this house. Like they just never came out. They went to work
It's
early and they came
wild.
home and it was like a rental. And I was like, we knew everybody that lived in our community. So the
Yep.
community feel, I think, for many people that grew up with that is really a core need in our lives to have that. And I know for me, with the Powerhouse community, it was the first place since I've moved to Arizona, like getting more involved with it, that it seemed like there was a genuine sense of people that actually wanted to help you without feeling like you had to pay them for something. And what I mean by
Mm.
that is like people genuinely just want to give an arm up, you know, like extend that olive branch and help someone else get to where they're at. And it's beautiful to see the chain of what you have created there. So why don't you give us the backstory of kind of how Powerhouse Women started?
Yep, it was a total accident. So, this is one of my favorite stories to share because back to what I was saying about just finding my own human potential, it's it was a big lesson for me to be open-minded to where that journey was going to lead me because I mentioned just briefly that my background was in health and fitness. I actually before that because I feel like the ladies kicking ass community would really love this. I sold carpet. I was in a job that, didn't sound glamorous, but it had a lot of
Mhm.
things about it that also have contributed to who I am. And I moved to Arizona for that job and really quickly started to realize, and I think it's cool that we're in a time right now where people are maybe a little bit uncertain about the economy and all these things. And I decided to take this job opportunity in commercial construction in 2007. So very quickly, as I got into my position, the entire industry changed. And it became very clear to me that the Midwest dream, which was very much you get a great job with great benefits that's going to take care of you and you put your head down and work. And I was totally happy with that plan. It
Mhm.
started to dawn on me. And what was interesting is right away, my mind didn't go to fear. It went to, okay, things have changed. What can I do about it? Maybe I'll start a little side hustle. I'll start something of my own so that just in case I need a plan B, I've got it. And that led me down the path of health and fitness. I started a little network marketing business, which turned into a bigger network marketing business. And I eventually turned in my carpet samples and went full time as an entrepreneur. And I thought that was going to be it for me. I think the other thing about the Midwest values is I'm very loyal. And when I find something that I love, I genuinely just feel like I have to stay there forever. But along that journey, I started to realize that there were some patterns that I had that weren't really serving me. And one of them was I was really unwilling to get uncomfortable. I am a pretty ambitious person. I'm a pretty goal driven person. And I'm also pretty
Mhm.
naturally gifted. And I'm confident enough to say that I could literally give my 70% and I could get results that looked like other people's 100%. And I say that to
Absolutely.
say that, I think those of us that know we're here to do big things, and I knew that about you the moment I met you, it's kind of tricky, right? Because we can hide in plain
Mhm.
sight and no one's going to call us out because we're the one in our social circle who's doing the most.
Oh,
No one was like,
yeah.
Lindsay, you're not doing enough. Like, there's more for you. They were like, wow, you're so busy and you're doing so much and you're so awesome. And that's great for a while until you cannot deny the fact that there is more for you. There's just another level. And what that searching and kind of soul searching journey led me to was one day I'm on Facebook and just scrolling my daily Facebook scroll, and an acquaintance, it wasn't even someone I knew very well, posted something about doing a program that was helping entrepreneurs get their message out in the form of a book. And I messaged her. I literally keep the screenshot of this message on my computer background. It was January 10th, 2016. And I said, send me details of this writing workshop. I don't even know why I'm asking you. Haha. Right? I'm like, I literally have no idea why I'm sending you this message. But I said something inside me said, hey, you should do that. And I think there are these moments where if we're listening, if we're paying attention, we are getting like those little nudges in the direction of something that, even if it doesn't seem linear, it doesn't seem like, oh, that's the natural next step for me to take. I had no interest in writing a book, but it was like this hell yes inside that I was just present enough that day. I happened to be really paying attention to that internal feeling that said, like, lean into that. And that message turned into a phone call with the woman organizing the program, who I very kindly told, I don't even know why I'm talking to you. I'm not going to write a book. And what she said to me was, Lindsey, this could be really great to establish you as more of an expert in health and fitness. And for the first time ever, I had literally not said this out loud to this point. I said, yeah, I don't think I'd want to talk about health and fitness. I think that chapter of my life is closing, which you have to understand. I spent 6 years. I mean, did the fitness competitions, all the things. I had a brand around health and fitness. And now I was saying, yeah, I don't want to write about that. And what I told her was, in building a network marketing business, because there's also a business opportunity connected to it, I was having a lot of conversations with women, men and women, but I just talked to more women about their big dreams and what they really wanted out of life. And inevitably, the conversations would kind of go like this. It would be like, Lindsey, I'm so inspired by what you've done. You really got me thinking, like, well, what do I want to do? And I don't think your thing is for me. Like, I don't think that business is for me, but I've always had this other idea. Or I think I would want to do something in this along these lines. And every single time when I would ask, okay, well, how's that going? How can I support you? The next thing out of their mouth would be why they weren't ready. They felt scared. They felt like an imposter. They didn't know enough. They didn't have enough time. And every single time I kind of sat back and I was like, hold on, time out. Did no one tell you? That's how we all feel. That is what it feels like to pursue a big dream. And so I share this with the woman on the phone, and that just such a jerk. She said, "Why? If you don't write that book, who's going to?" I'm laughing because I'm like, I was so offended. I was like, excuse me? But then I opened my mouth to tell her all the reasons why I didn't know enough. I wasn't a writer. Who was going to listen to me? I had a health and fitness background, and I heard it. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice. And I think we have kind of like these defining moments where we have a choice to make. We can either go in the direction of what's comfortable and stay safe, or we can go in the direction of a door that's clearly opening. And I said, yeah, okay, here's my money. The program starts in 2 days, and I have no idea what I'm going to write about. I just know that that's the impact I want to make. And that book went on to inspire the Powerhouse Women event, which went on to inspire the community and everything that people see today. But, there's so many points in that journey where I almost quit. I actually tried to quit. And I think that, like, when I think about what it means to me to kick ass, it really means to keep going in those moments where I wanted to quit, because all of this could very easily not exist today.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for not quitting. And that is such an incredible story, because I think so many people think when it comes to success, or they might see you where you're at, and it's the social media world that we live in today, that someone is looking at, you're coming into 7 years of Powerhouse Women, and somebody is just starting something, and you get this imposter syndrome of like, I'm never going to be like her. But we have to remember, and it's so important, so thank you for sharing your story, that everybody started somewhere, and it's usually not this big glamorous thing that just occurred that then made somebody this 7 year later overnight success. that
Yeah, it
so many
only took
people think just
7
happens.
years to be an overnight
7
success,
years of
right?
sleeps, you know?
And probably
How
more
many
if you
years of
really
sleep did that
count,
take?
right?
Yeah.
If you really consider like the years previously that I was building the other business and learning about business and learning about personal development, it really is like 12 years in the making. And it's so easy to say that, but I still do it too. I still look at people who are ahead of me and I'm like, oh man, they must have just woke up that awesome, I guess.
Yep. I think it's become such a natural like default of thinking of things because it's so in our face all the time. But you really have to sit down and think about that stuff too, and think, that nobody's this big overnight success. So it's an evolution of things that start before. And I love that you say that about your fitness business too, because I think a lot of times when we do see ourselves at a juncture where we want to pivot, we think, well, we're just starting something brand new, so we have to start over from ground zero, and that's often not the case. What do you think that you took from building your health and fitness business that has helped you build Powerhouse Women to what it is today?
Such a great question. So much of it, I think that experience really taught me a lot about business. It taught me a lot about sales. I was building community even in that world. And it it started to put all these pieces together that ultimately helped me build my confidence, like just my trust in myself. Even though, yes, if I am honest, I wasn't giving my all. I wasn't really going after what success looked like to me in that world. I think deep down, I knew that my real impact in the world wasn't going to stop within that company. I can make all the
Mm-hmm.
justifications in the world for why I wasn't really going after it. But ultimately, I also think, and I don't talk about this a whole lot, but one of the biggest gifts it gave me was the way I pursued that business is completely different to the way I pursue Powerhouse Women. And the biggest difference is that I am stepping way beyond what I know myself to be capable of in this venture now. So I have to trust
Mm-hmm.
so much more. When I was in that previous business, a lot of it was I almost was I was tapping into more of, if we want to call them like the toxic traits of being really goal driven, is I never felt like I was enough. I never felt like I was doing enough. I had a lot of codependent tendencies in the people that I attracted into my world. And had I not gone through that, I don't think I could show up as the leader that I am in Powerhouse Women, because I can tell distinctly the difference now when I'm trying to force outcomes versus when I'm leading with intuition and leading with my heart. And I still work freaking hard. That part I don't ever
Mm-hmm.
turn off. But the way that I approach business is so different. And I think that had I not learned that in the previous season, I think I would probably be stifling the growth that we experienced and are still experiencing in Powerhouse Women, because my relationship to the business was so different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's something I don't talk
Yep.
about a ton, but it's actually a huge piece of the gift that I got from that previous experience.
Yes. I think every experience leaves clues as to what to do and what not to do
Mm,
when you decide to pivot. And it's
so
just as
true.
important to pay attention to the things what to do as, as it is. A lot of times we default to the negative. Well, I'll never do that again. You're like, yeah, but there was a lot of good shit that happened over here too that has
Mm,
now made me the person that I am. And it might not even be something tactical, but it's something that you went through and you lived through this thing, and you would, at one point wake up in cold sweats freaking out about it. And now you can sleep because you have learned a better way of doing stuff. So it's great that we leave one spot and take it to the next one without. I think sometimes when people pivot, it's almost like a death of some sort of like,
so
I
true.
was supposed to stay here. I went to college, I got a degree in this. So now I have to stay here and I have to be this person. I started a business, and so this is just my life because I'm stuck here. I can't quit my own business. So I'm stuck. I hear that a lot in the trades.
Mm,
And I'm like, but you can do other things. You could sell a business, you could hire people to run it for you. You could do all of these things, which is a huge transition that I think a lot of people are going through. You're doing awesome new big things too. Um, and what do you think? What do you have to say to that when people say, well, this is where I am. I feel stuck, but this is just my life.
Yeah, well, I would say with so much love that you're never stuck. You're just not. And what you probably are is avoiding either a really bold decision, a really brave conversation, maybe an uncomfortable conversation. You're avoiding disappointing someone else and you're choosing to disappoint yourself instead. And I say that as someone who's been all of those people too. I'm a never stuck. I can always see at least the next step, but oftentimes it's not something that I really want to do. So then I'm like, no, thanks. Thank you so much. I would like a different and alternate step that just is going to feel more comfortable for me. And that's not the way it works. You know, if you're growing, if you're evolving as a person, that's what's inside of you that's starting to register as discomfort is it's your sign that there is just more for you to experience. And it's not likely going to look like what you've experienced up to this point. And the more you can fall in love with that journey and fall in love with the fact that it is a shit show. This is why you got to find good girlfriends who are on the ride with you. They're on the roller coaster because you're like, I mean, are you in it? And that's half of my text messages with like my close friends are like, are you in it right now? Because like here, I am having a whole mental breakdown and here's what it is. But I'm good because I know that this is leading me somewhere. But normalizing the fact that stuck is a choice. If you feel stuck, you're likely avoiding the very thing that's going to get you unstuck because it feels really uncomfortable.
Oh, so good. It's so good. And I love what you touch on in there that you need to make this bold decision to do something. Ladies Kicking Ass is all very much about being this bold, authentic self. And if you are continuing to stay stuck somewhere, how damn authentic are you being? You know, a lot of things I think too that get people stuck. And I know I've dealt with this personally. I'd love to hear your experience with this, but a lot of times it's like you feel like you have to do it by yourself, which I think like seriously, like even just the motto of Powerhouse Women is that you don't have to do life or business by yourself, you know? We're not meant to do it that way. It's okay to ask people for help. And I know on one of your recent podcasts that I loved so much was like your big, bold ask. What is your big, bold ask that you can do to maybe move the needle in the direction of where you're wanting to go? So where do you, Lindsey, find the confidence and how do you approach those big, bold asks that you think will move you in the direction where you need to go?
Well, part of what the inspiration behind that episode was watching my husband just boldly ask for someone to sponsor his brand new podcast, brand new. And I was like, shit, I don't do enough of that. So the truth is I still am very much working on this myself. And when I think about the places where I have asked, or an example is I got to interview like a big, huge person on the podcast who works for a huge company. She's the CMO of Square, like the payment processor. And the reason, I mean, I guess I'll just say it right here. The reason we wanted to have her on the podcast was maybe they would sponsor our event. So inside, I knew that I wanted to find an authentic opportunity to bring that up. Because the other thing that I shared in that episode you mentioned is there are some things that you can do to increase your chances of a yes. And most people are asking the wrong way, and that's why they're getting no's, and that's why they probably don't want to go ask again. But if you're looking, I think what gives me confidence is I look at everything through the lens of how can this be such a win for them? Because then I have nothing I have no resistance to asking because I'm literally giving them an opportunity. So if it's asking for someone to sponsor our event or our podcast, it's instead of saying like, hey, I'd love for you to sponsor me, it's saying, oh my goodness, I have literally put 500 to 700 of your ideal client in a room. And I think this could be a really win-win opportunity to put your brand in front of them in a very intentional way. We'd love to talk about what that could look like. But I'm coming
Yeah.
from a place of I know what I bring to the table, and I'm presenting that ask, whatever it might be, in a way that I'm getting centered first in what's in it for them. How can I add value to them in a way that just makes so much sense for them to say yes? Like they'd actually be just so crazy to say no. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what feels most authentic to me. Everyone has their own style, but when I can find the win-win, I am ruthless with asking because I'm just like, oh my gosh, this could be so much fun. It could support you. It could support me too. So I think finding that place where for you, your energy lights up like that, because there's so much
Mm-hmm.
less resistance. I think a lot of the reason, I don't want to generalize and say, as women, we struggle with this. I've watched a lot of women that I mentor have a lot of guilt around asking, like we're bothering someone or
Mm-hmm.
we are an inconvenience to them in some way. Don't ask anything from that energy. If you notice that that's kind of going on in your body, sit down, journal or meditate or do whatever you need to do. Go for a walk and just think about like, why is this such an opportunity for the other person that I'm asking? And we do this with
Mm-hmm.
everything big and small, everything down to if I'm pitching myself to be on someone's podcast. Yes, do I want them to put me on their platform? Absolutely. But I'm not going to ask by saying that. I'm going to say, hey, I've got a pretty aligned community. Here's what could be fun. Like, let's talk about ways that we can really cross promote, right? It's a totally different approach. And
Yeah.
the reason I approach it that way is that's where my energy is most clear, which back to your question is what gives me the confidence to ask and stay really unattached if the person says no, because they're not judging me. It just might not be a
Right.
fit for what they're prioritizing right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And even if it comes back, I think that's a big part of the ask too, is them saying no. And so to avoid the no, I'll just avoid the ask. And I was listening when Lori presented in Texas. She was given the story about how she had pitched somebody to big to be on her podcast. And the person kept saying, no, no, no. But she's like, I was literally getting an education on how to, one, even tell somebody no and be as gracious as she was about that. And also, like, just like the stamina of being able to ask and curate and come at it from a different approach. I think it's very important that when you're asking people to do stuff too, I know for like, even with my septic company, I love and I know our service is so much more superior than anybody else in the valley that I almost feel sorry for them if they choose a different decision or a
Yeah.
different company, because I know what I can offer you. And if you choose to go here, I know what that looks like too. And so it comes from an approach of education and a true desire to want to help somebody. And I think when you come from those two background or those two reasons behind it, instead of a what's in it for me, obviously I got paid from that job that my guys go do, but it's not even about that. It's about how can we make this happy customer that will tell the rest of the neighborhood to give us a call and continue those services. So when you come from that servant position of kind of asking and helping them grow their business, I think it's really important. And I think in the trades, this is something that people are so scared to do, but we get asked so many times, like, do you know a plumber? Do you know this person? Do you know this person? I know in your
Right.
community, I go to the Facebook group all the time. I just did. I'm like, I need a virtual assistant. Who in here does this? Then they're like, well, what are you looking
Yep.
for? I'm like, a virtual assistant. And then they tell me all these things that they can do. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even know I needed that, but now I need that too. So it's so important to build that community of people, which I very much, if you do not follow Lindsey or Powerhouse Women on Instagram, you must do so immediately because the content is always good. And there was one that you had posted that talked about the three different kinds of community that women should really try to find themselves a part of. And one of those was to mentor, and one of those was to collaborate with, and one of those was to inspire another community to do good things. Did I get that right? Yes. And the one that you can impact.
Star student.
Can you talk? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like that stuck with me. So I screenshotted that one too, because I was like, this is so important that people understand this because I
Mm,
think like as children, we identify in the way that we grew up, we identify with having this family unit community. And so you go to
mm-hmm.
them for being mentored, you go to them for collaboration, you go to them to motivate the people in there. But many times these can be three very different communities. And we're trying to put them into one and then feeling devastated because we don't get those three results out of one community. So, can you talk a little bit
Yes.
towards your inspiration of posting that?
It really goes back to my journey in writing the book that helped me understand that there were these three distinct communities of people that were the reason I actually finished that. And that combined with something my good friend Lori Harder talked about in her book, which was not putting the pressure on any one person in your life to be everything. So that
Mhm.
idea really helped me to understand that what I was really looking for was to build out my team. So if you think about even like a sports team, they've got a whole team of coaches. They don't have just one coach who does everything. They've got the athletic trainers, the physical therapist, they've got, the head coach, someone I barely know sports. So like just bear with me while I try to like use this analogy, but right? Like in football they've got like offensive coaches, defensive coaches. So when I was writing the book, it really was this group of people that happened to be mostly the people I was also writing with that I realized I needed three different types of support. So in those moments that I wanted to quit, and there were three calls. I had to show up on these Zoom calls every single week for 16 weeks. And a lot of the time we were showing up and we had to read 1,000 words that we had written. And as a recovering perfectionist, that was torture. That was like the last thing I wanted. I didn't want to read anything out loud until it was like perfect and exactly like polished. But I was really leaning into this
Mhm.
experience. And I remember one time distinctly that I literally showed up with the intention of telling them that day that this just wasn't going to work for me. I was going to take a pause. I was going to make it cute. It's like I like to call the cute quit. You don't say, I'm scared, I'm feeling resistance, I want to quit. You're like, it's just not a good season for me. I just need to just take a pause. Like we're so just get
Mhm.
cute with it. And you're like, no, just say you're effing quitting. Okay. That'd be more powerful.
Yep.
And that day I showed up, read my thing. And I remember being so pissed because I had enrolled myself in quitting. It was so logical to me. It just made perfect sense why I should quit. And the group that was there listening to what I read and my fellow writers, they said, something to the effect of, Lindsey, we need this book. And they didn't know I was on the brink of quitting. They just were like, wow, I cannot wait for you to finish this. I need this. What you wrote today was exactly what I needed to hear to help me like just keep moving forward in the writing process. And I remember being like, damn it. Because here's what it helped
Yeah.
me realize is, I was being supported by people who were also in the journey with me. So when we talk about even like why Powerhouse Women is intentionally created to help you connect with and find those like-minded people, because some days you need the person who's like, I am so close to quitting, talk me down from the ledge. Like, am
Yeah.
I crazy for feeling this way? Am I crazy for feeling like super jealous that this other person got an opportunity that I didn't, or super hurt that I'm not being included in things? You need those people who are in the trenches with you. And then I also needed to focus on the people who I was writing the book for. So it's the person who makes you get out of your own damn way, because for most of us, and I do find this with a lot of the women I coach, we are so much more willing to get uncomfortable if we know it's going to benefit someone else. If I wrote that book just
Yeah.
for me, I would have quit so long ago. But I will get uncomfortable to serve someone else. So
Oh,
anchoring
yeah.
into your why, right? Why you're doing it, whether that's your family or the people that, what you're creating is going to impact, or your customers. And that was the first community, then the community that was in the trenches with me. But I was also being mentored by someone who knew what the journey was supposed to look like. So it was that person who could say, yeah, that's totally normal to start feeling like, I don't know if I want to do this, I want to quit. Or someone who just, she had read a lot of books. She'd helped a lot of authors publish books. And she said, Lindsey, you're a great writer. Like, this is really needed. And I think that that's what I love about being a mentor, getting to be that voice into someone's life, of breathing belief into them on the days when, and we all have them, when it's harder for you to connect with your own belief in yourself. And it is not weak to need that validation or need that little encouragement, because especially if you're pursuing a really, really big idea, you're not supposed to have all the skills and resources and talents to bring it to life. You're supposed to, this is why I say you're not meant to do it alone. You're literally supposed to go and find your communities who are going to support you and rally around you and help bring that idea to life. And when I started to see them as those three distinct communities, anytime I wasn't feeling supported, now I know to pause and be and kind of ask myself, okay, well, which one of the communities right now do I feel like I'm lacking in? Okay, have I not poured enough time lately into my friendships with other entrepreneurs who are in the trenches with me? Let me make a call and go schedule a walk with a girlfriend. Or, do I not have a mentor right now? Am I feeling like I'm in a season where I'm really craving mentorship? And just starting to kind of put my feelers out there for who I'm feeling called to work with in that season. And I think mentors can be formal, right? Like, you kind of said this at the beginning. We've gotten a chance now to formally work together. But before that, I got to be a mentor to you, just even through the podcast and some of the other things that I was putting out. So mentorship doesn't always have to be you're hiring a mentor, but I think it's just finding someone who's a little bit further along, who shows you what's possible. But they also, when you are working with them in a more formal way, they can help shortcut your journey, help you avoid some of the pitfalls, and then just remind you that this is totally possible for you.
Yes. And the biggest benefit of being part of a community is being really truthful and authentic as to where you're at. Because even if you think you're in the biggest shit show of your life, someone else has been in something worse. And I think that's something that truly has helped me. And I would love to hear your take on this too. Is like, many times you're like, I'm the only, like this you feel like this is only happening to you.
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me, and I think that through a lot of personal development, you realize that it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, and turning the boat, if you will, in a direction of where you're supposed to go. And I think very much so, being open to the evolution of what that looks like with friendships, your family, your current business, if you're in one and you're wanting to pivot into something else or a different role in things, being open to that, because things can't stay the same if you are changing. What has been your experience with that in particular about like your friends, your girlfriends? I know for me, like before I started my business or even through my business, they still don't understand what the hell I'm doing. Every time I keep showing up on social media, they're like, "Oh, you're so cute," and I'm like, "Oh, well, thank you, but that's kind of not the goal," Um, this little thing you got here is so cute, and I think maybe it's because a lot of them don't understand what we're doing with
Totally.
building the community side of things. But I do find that even my relationships with my girlfriends have shifted because I'm a busy mom too. I have 5 kids. So it's like, do you have this set of friends and this set of friends? And then you're trying to do everything. I see that my friendships have evolved more into having friendships with other female entrepreneurs. Has that been your experience in the growth of Powerhouse Women as well?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think it's okay to again go back to that, what I was saying earlier about the communities, is to realize that different friendships are going to nurture different things for you, and that it's
Mhm.
perfectly okay if you don't find yourself really interested in the conversations that you used to have with friends. And that was tough. I think I, especially being such like a community and heart-centered person, I was like, man, am I an asshole? If all I really want to do is get together and talk about business, I could care less about who the Bachelor is right now. I just really don't care.
Yeah.
Never seen any of the Real Housewives, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So like, if that's like the way you unplug, or the thing that you love, you're going to have friendships that nurture different things. I really am in a
hmm
season right now where I want to be talking beyond surface level. I just do. And I really pay attention to who when I'm around them is someone who I notice my nervous system is just at ease around. Like I can just be
Mhm.
fully myself and I'm not auditing what I'm saying. I'm not like, oh, is this too much or am I too bold for saying this? I have a really, really big purpose in this world. And I am actually doing the women that I serve a disservice if I'm spending a lot of time in places where I can't fully be leaning into that version of me. Now, that's not to
Mhm.
say that I don't have spaces where it was funny. I was literally talking to my little sister yesterday. I'm so obsessed with her. And she still lives in Wisconsin. My parents live in Wisconsin. And it's so funny because she came to the very first ever Powerhouse Women event. And people were coming up to her like, oh my gosh, you're Lindsey's sister. And listen, all you need is a sibling who's going to keep it real to like knock you down a few pegs. And she was like, yeah. Like, and they were like, what
Yeah.
was it like growing up to her? And then she just started telling all my secrets. How I used to, I mean, just we used to pretend we were vampires and torture her. Like I was not a very nice big sister at times. But it's when I go back to the Midwest, I'm not Lindsey, Powerhouse Women. I mean, my my parents excluded, but like extended family, aunts, uncles have never once asked me about my business. They just don't. And they don't know how to even
Mhm.
ask. They wouldn't know how to support me. So why would I expect them to? I get to go home and I get
Yes.
to just be Lindsey from the Midwest. And
Mhm.
if I which I do, like now I have friends in those areas where I can connect with them, like we can talk business. I go to see my grandparents. I don't expect them to ask how my event is coming along. That's not even something that
Mhm.
they know how to ask, or like you said, they couldn't even understand it if I explained it to them. So I'm good. I don't need them to because I have that support
Mhm.
because I've intentionally created it elsewhere. So whether it's friendships or family, do yourself and them the biggest favor and stop expecting them to get it. They don't need to
Mhm.
get it. They don't need to support it because they couldn't even support you in the way you need to be supported if they wanted to. And maybe they do want to, but they're just not going to be able to give you that because they don't have the same view on your life and what you're doing. So the moment I started to be like really okay with that, like really okay, I think it's kind of fun living a double life. Like my family literally has no idea. No idea. But that's kind of cool, right? Because I just get to go home, just be normal and, not need to be on. And I think it's just made me a lot happier the more I've just come to terms with that.
Well, that's a great way to be able to decompress and unplug too, because
Mm,
there are people that are so famous they can't even walk outside and have that autonomy. And so I think our souls still
yeah.
need to have some of that too. So I think maybe a lot of that stuff is a blessing in disguise too. And I think that we look at the people that we love the most and we want to bring them with us on things, even if that's your spouse, because I know for a lot of women try to get their spouse to be their number one supporter and cheerleader. I know when I first started my podcast, I was like, how come you never share my stuff? Like, come on, help me out here. Like, you should just know to do this, right? And he's like, you want me to share it? Like, he had no idea. It wasn't the fact of him saying, like, I don't support you. He's like, rah, rah, like I think he's starting to get it the more that I just keep talking about it all of the time. But I think that's a very interesting part of that too, that we talk a lot about on the podcast is the support of your spouse in chasing those big goals. I think it's great to have the conversation around it, but you can't expect them to be your biggest cheerleader. And I think that was something that I got the most out of going to the mastermind that I went of yours earlier this year, is finding that community of cheerleaders. It was before, like, I'm going to keep showing up and I don't know if anybody's watching. I don't know if anything. I have 22 new awesome cheerleaders that you literally want to show up for those people as you're starting stuff. So give your spouse a break if they're not on that journey with you. They may decide to come along with you. And I think that's very interesting. And you have some perspective of that too in what has happened with your relationship. And how your husband has now become an entrepreneur with things, which I think is so incredibly cool. What was your dynamic as far as that's concerned, as to what I'm speaking about here? Has your husband always been very supportive of this venture of yours, or was it kind of that season that you went through too of like, I just don't think he gets this?
Mm. Yeah, what a lot of people may not know about Elliot, given that I was kind of the one who was more front facing entrepreneur while he was still working his sales career, he was actually the one who was far more entrepreneurial than me. He was the one who got us involved in our initial network marketing company, has always been interested in real estate and inspired me in a lot of ways. And then when I got it, I
Mhm.
just got it and I was like, "Oh yeah, I was meant to do this." So as
Mhm.
our trajectory kind of went forward, we were both in corporate doing network marketing. Then we decided I was going to go full time. I was really passionate, really wanted to build that business. And then eventually on to Powerhouse Women. And like when I say that he's quite literally never batted an eye, like the crazier, bigger idea I bring to him, sometimes he'll be like, okay, well, show me the plan, especially if it involves like a big financial investment. But quite
Sure.
literally has always been like, if there's one person I'll bet on, it's you. And I remember someone asking me
Mm.
once, like, what did he think when you said, oh, I want to do this big women's event? And I was reflecting back on it and I was like, what was so cool is I think he also knows. I wonder if your partner's like this too, because you're a pretty like when you make up your mind, you do it. Like he just knows not to
Mhm.
even like try to talk me out of it. So he skipped past like, oh, should you really do this event? He's like, okay, got it. You're doing an event. Like, not even gonna fight that. Can I be the security guard? He literally was like, can I wear a security shirt? That was his question. He just skipped right past like, can you do this? Should you do this? And he's like, well, actually, I have a
Mhm.
life dream of pretending to be a security guard. So he's just always really been on board in that way. But one of the things that we talk about a lot is I had to realize number one, the way his support looked and really be intentional about helping, not helping him see because he saw it. What do I want to say about this? I had to be very intentional with acknowledging publicly to him privately how much the fact that he chose for years to stay in his sales job literally is what allowed us to make bigger financial investments, to take bigger risks with growing Powerhouse Women. So he is every bit a part of what I've built or what I get more of the credit for building. And when I started to really intentionally look at everything we do through that partnership lens, I noticed even just the way he engaged with the business I was building and the ideas he would bring me, and he felt really a part of it. And we did that early on, but where I could have easily sabotaged the supportive relationship we do have is my interest in like personal development and going to conferences and going to that was different than his. His growth and what he's really drawn to is just different than things I'm interested in. And in the beginning, I had a fear of maybe, growing at different paces and what did it mean
Mhm.
if I wanted to do all these seminars on the weekends and he didn't. And he was always supportive, never ever tried to talk me out of it, but he was like, yeah, I'm good, just come home and share with me what you learned. And I had to realize that my deepest desire was that we were growing together in some way. I didn't actually need
Mhm.
him to be at the seminar with me, especially if he didn't want to be there. Like that just would ruin my
Sure.
experience. But to realize
Mhm.
that what I most deeply cared about was just the fact that we were growing together. And when I started to look for the ways that we were absolutely growing together, it helped me to drop that attachment. Because I think whether we're saying it out loud or not, if we're attached to our partner showing up in a certain way, they feel it. We can feel it if it's coming from the other way, and they can feel it if we
Yeah.
are. And that's something I've really had to work on reframing so that I'm not bringing that icky energy where he feels like he's not supporting me when he actually is, if I'm willing to look for it and see it through the lens of how he's supporting me.
Yes. It doesn't always look like how you think it should. And then when you
Never. It
step
almost
back
never
and
does.
look at it, no, it doesn't. It truly doesn't. And at that mastermind, you guys being so vulnerable and being able to share your story was so incredibly impactful to me. So I appreciate that so very much. And every time I listen to Elliot's podcast, all I can think of is the meat box story that you talked about. And I'm like, this is,
You know,
it's so incredible what you can pick up off of them, even just them as people doing that. That inspired me too, because I was like, my podcast isn't ginormously huge. I don't have, tens of thousands of followers. No one is going to do, like, if I do this event or if I do these things, like, nobody's going to sponsor you to do these things. I'm like going back to my old, like, foundation board days of, like, having to, like, beg people to donate things, and I'm like, if you show up in that true passion and you do those things and take that confidence that I know we both draw from our spouses, and look at that, that is significant impact on your business and on your life. And that is a form of support that they give us that they may not even be intentionally doing. So I think when you're open to that and open to them, you can that partnership just grows so much stronger. And it's not always textbook to everything, just like business. I think it's
yeah.
interesting about the relationship. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I know that we have had an incredible conversation here around community. It has been so incredibly awesome to learn about your story and just all of the tips that you've given us about building awesome, wonderful communities. So I know that you have lots of things going on. So why don't you tell us what's up next for Lindsey?
Well, thank you again just so much for the invitation and just to get to chat with you. The more I get to know about you, the more I see what you're creating, the bigger believer I am in all of it. So getting to be a part of this podcast is just so cool. I'm super excited to see you and so many of the girls who are in the mastermind with you in August. We have a big live event. It's called Powerhouse Women, August 25th and 26th in Phoenix, Scottsdale. And this is really a day designed to help you get into action around the big things that you want to do, whether that's a business or whether you want to, take your career to the next level, or you just really want to work on growing yourself. It's a day that will inspire you and encourage you to do that, but also put you in a room with women who do want to connect. So if you're listening to this and realize you don't have those communities, they are all in a room. I put them in a room for you. You're welcome. And this is going to be such a pivotal day to remind you of what you're capable of. So would love to see everyone there. And then our podcast is Powerhouse Women. So if you love podcasts and you are really in a space where you're hungry for that growth or some of the things that we've been talking about today, I talk about all of it over on that show, and it's one of my favorite places to serve.
It's so good. It's so good. And definitely make sure that you're following Lindsey and Powerhouse Women so that you can get all the announcements and all of the goodies of everything that she has going on. We'll put everything in the show notes for everybody in here. Thank you so much, Lindsey. At the end of every single one of these podcasts, I always ask everyone the same question. I think it's very interesting. It's inspiring my book. It's inspiring an event. It is really, truly helping me be able to bring a community to people based upon the answers that they give to this question. Because I think it is very different for every woman that I ask, and even some men that have been on here, depending upon what phase they're in. And I want this to be an encompassing question to where people can identify with the title of this podcast of Ladies Kicking Ass. So my question to everyone is, what does the phrase ladies kicking ass mean to you?
Ooh, well, I love this phrase. And I think because of the world that I am in, I see our missions as so similar. I think what it means to me to be someone who's kicking ass is that person who's just committed to their own growth in every area. And sometimes you're right, that season of growth looks like a little bit more quiet and stillness and creating space. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not out there hustling and grinding and showing up everywhere. I'm being very intentional. And that actually is me kicking ass right now. Is I'm working on really getting in tune with that next version of me and what she needs, and tapping into that energy and how I can show up as her every day. And that to me is ultimately what kicking ass really looks like.
Oh, I love it so much. A lot of that thinking time and processing and stillness is where all the goodness grows from. It's just not as pretty to people for some reason, and I appreciate you bringing that up and making that kind of a theme of what that means for you right now in this season, because it's an integral part of getting to the next stage of where you see your personal and business growth going. So I'm excited that you have taken that
Yeah.
time for yourself. You know, we all love you when you're out and about and doing all the stuff, but the podcast and everything is there and available for everybody. Lindsey has an incredible membership too that I am a part of, and I love just everything that revolves around that. Just being able to have that group of big, bold women that are asking awesome questions and are looking to grow themselves personally. So thank you so much, Lindsey. And I can't wait for the Powerhouse Women event.
Me either. It really is my favorite day of the year. I'm very biased, but I just think that we more than ever are craving that connection to ourselves and what we're capable of, but connection with others who are on that journey and remind us of what we're capable of. So I can't wait to be in the room with you and everyone in August. It's going to be so fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Today's message was pure inspirational fire. I loved it so much. Hey, if you got a lot out of today's show and you think a friend of yours may love it too, please do me a quick favor. Screenshot the episode, post it, tag us at Ladies Kickin' Ass, or share the link to the episode. I'm here to help and support as many badasses as possible, and your generosity in sharing the show to your audience means the world to me. Don't forget to hit subscribe to be notified of all newly released episodes, because they're that good, and leaving the show a 5-star review is the ultimate expression of love. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook and we can chat further. There's also a link to connect in the show notes. Thank you for being part of our tribe. Now go kick some ass, lady.